Welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining this week's Next Normal series from Worth Live on how women can boost their financial confidence right now. I'm excited for this conversation. Firstly, I hope you and your loved ones are keeping well during what has and continues to be a challenging time for so many people. I'm Juliet Scott-Croxford, CEO at Worth Media, and I'm delighted to be joined by our wonderful guests today, CeCe Olisa, co-founder at the Curvy Con and founder and curator of the Curvy Girls Guy, and Kathleen Entwistle, Managing Director and Private Wealth Advisor at Morgan Stanley Private Wealth Management. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Before we get started, just to share with those of you that are new to Worth, our intention at Worth is to create conversations that help inspire and inform our community, many of whom are entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders who want to leave a positive impact on the world and help to create a more inclusive and equal economy and society for the benefit of everyone. And we call that Worth Beyond Wealth. So we hope you enjoy this session and we hope you find it valuable. We also have a great Women in Worth platform, and we will be sharing the video and some follow-up content to this after the session. Forward thinking is the essence of this series, The Next Normal, where Worth is looking ahead to what the world looks like in this new environment that we're now all living in. We now know how important it is for women to take control of their own finances, but studies have found that in the last year, women's financial confidence has faltered. Investing is one of the main wealth drivers in the US, but women and people of color have historically been sidelined from the practice, and 47 million women across the globe are going to fall into poverty because of the global pandemic this year. So how can we become more empowered by our finances instead of feeling anxious or insecure about it? To talk about this and to have a very open conversation, we're delighted to be joined by experts and leaders, CeCe Olisa and Kathleen Entwistle, for this discussion on how we can make 2021 the year of financial empowerment for women and how we can break down some of those barriers around the language of finance. A few housekeeping rules before we get started. This is a conversation. Welcome to everyone that's joined us and that are also joining us now. Please do use the chat function. You can set it to all panelists and attendees. Type your comments in there. And also, if you've got any questions for Kathy or for CeCe, you can put your questions in there and we can unmute you at the right time and we'll weave those questions into the conversation, but we'd love to hear from you. Let's get started. So firstly, a personal check-in. CeCe, how are you doing personally? And I'd love to hear just briefly about your background and how you became involved in what you're now doing.
Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me, Juliet and Kathy. I'm so excited to chat. Before I jump in, I did announce this on my social media, so people from my community might be here. I don't know. I can see the chat function. So if any of my dolls are here, hello, thank you for being here. Feel free to drop an emoji. I'll know who you are. So yeah, I think personally, I'm doing okay. Like, it's an interesting time to be a human. It's an interesting time to be a woman. It's an interesting time to be a Black woman. So I'm doing my best to balance all of that. And one of the bright spots for me has been serving my community. I think from the beginning, at the beginning of COVID, the Savage Challenge was popular. So I did a Savage Challenge dance class on Instagram Live. Was that a money-making move? No, but it was something fun to do with my community that I probably wouldn't have done had it not been for what went down, right? So I think being able to be innovative and find new ways to hang out with my girls has been one of the bright spots, and everything else I'm juggling the best I can.
Tell us a bit about the Curvy Girls Guide and Curvy Con, CeCe.
Yes. So I guess a quick background for me, which I think you asked for, I forgot to tell you. I quit my 9-to-5 corporate job in 2015 and co-founded the Curvy Con after going from like an anonymous plus size blogger to kind of an influencer, and then moving into entrepreneurship and things like that. So the Curvy Con is, we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary last year, and it is a plus size fashion convention that happens during New York Fashion Week. So the Curvy Con is when New York Fashion Week is celebrating, you know, fashion that doesn't sometimes include plus size women. The Curvy Con is happening simultaneously with runway shows and panels and pop-up shops and different ways to serve plus size women. So we've got an amazing, we've been sold out every year since our inception in 2015. And we've had fun guests like Lizzo, Venus Williams, Chrissy Metz. So yeah, it's been an honor to co-found that company. And then the Curvy Girls Guide is my newest venture. So as founder of the Curvy Girls Guide, I curate daily virtual events on my Instagram where we talk about topics like how to start a capsule closet, how to make friends, just like things that like nobody pulls you over and says like, this is what you should do if you want to like achieve these subtle life goals that sometimes women, especially women with body image issues, might hold back from that. They might not go to the networking event because they're worried about the size of their jeans, right? So my personal motto and my brand motto is don't wait on your weight to live the life you want. So it's a monthly community subscription for women who want to walk in that. So yeah, that's just a little bit about that. We have an okay time. We have fun.
That's brilliant, and we're honoured to have you on this. So thank you, and we'll get into all sorts into this conversation. But I want to welcome Kathleen Entwistle. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Juliet. Hi, CeCe. Glad to be here with both of you.
And Kathy, share a bit about your role with entrepreneurs and with founders, and how, as a wealth advisor, you support them on that journey.
Sure. So I think that a lot of entrepreneurs and founders are super smart, super passionate about what they're doing. Really, everything is like working together. They're building a business and they're so busy that they're not necessarily focusing on their personal financial picture. They're focusing on everything else. And it's my job to help them refocus and repurpose to make sure that they're including themselves in that equation and valuing, their power and their worth. And so that's what I love to do. Just sort of make that positive impact, take the fear out of money, take the stress out of it. A big question everybody has is like, well, I don't have enough money. When do I start? And it's so confusing. So we just try to take all of that out and make it very comfortable and make it just simple steps to get from point A to point B. So that's basically in a nutshell what I try to do.
Thank you. And I want to ask you both your first money memory, because I think a lot of the relationship that women have with money stems all the way back from your background and from your upbringing. And I'm curious as to, so for example, my dad always talked about earning money, and he gave me 50 pence, which is like basically like 50 cents for polishing the wheels of his car every week. So I got 50 cents per wheel. And I think now, thinking back, that was his way of saying, if you work, you can earn money. And then I could decide whether I wanted to save it, whether I wanted to spend it, or whether I wanted to give some of it away. And I just think it's interesting asking other people, like, what was your first money memory? CeCe, what was yours?
Yeah, so my first memory, I grew up in the church. So my first money memory is offering and having been given, a couple dollars from like someone in the week and thinking like, oh my gosh, do I have to put 20 cents in the offering? Because the tithe on anything, in the Bible, it's like you give 10% of your earnings. So like, my uncle or somebody had given me $1 or $2. And I remember being very stressed out about putting 10 cents in the offering because like I had to tithe on that money.
I love that. And Kathy, what was yours? Did you always want to be a wealth advisor?
No, I actually didn't. And I do have a couple of little memories. It's the best question. I love that question, Juliet. And it frames a lot about us with our money as we get older. So I would say I had my grandmother used to take me to the bank with her, and she would cut her bearer coupons to get her interest, which was on her bonds, the way they used to be way back, way back in the 70s and maybe a little bit in the 80s. But actually, I think sometimes money also brings us a sense of like shame or guilt or the feeling of lack or embarrassment. And I do remember being in 4th grade, and I was in a really fancy store with my mom, and I saw this beautiful winter jacket. It was pink and it was yellow and it was orange, and oh, it was beautiful. And I just wanted that jacket so badly. And when I asked my mom, she looked at me and she had like such sadness in her face. And she's like, we can't afford that. And I was like, and that idea of that there was something so, beautiful, or that I really, it was a useful item too, but it was also beautiful, that we couldn't afford it, really frames me to decide that I don't want to depend on other people. Now, years went on and we're able to afford fine jackets growing up. That was all. But that one moment defined me in the sense that I don't want to depend on somebody else for my financial security. And that has been a driving force for me through my whole career, for me personally, and then to help others with that same potential stress or fear.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. And there's some great comments on here. Ellen Hunt said her first money memory was setting up her first bank account and going to the bank each week to deposit her allowance and babysitting money. And I remember setting up my first bank account with my grandfather, actually, and I got like a little book and I was very proud of it. And I think it's an interesting one, and it's a great framing. So fast forward now, CeCe, you founded a business, an incredibly successful business. You've got a huge following online and an engaged following as well. Just share with us, what because you're clearly incredibly smart. You've built this business. Just talk about the framing of your relationship with money now, or certainly kind of over the last 10 years.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think as someone who, is somewhat of a public figure, I am one of the rules that I share with my audience when it comes to life and when it comes to being a public figure is that there's a very specific difference between what is personal and what is private. And I have a very personal brand, but I'm a very private person. So I have never been the one that like flexed on like what I'm making. There's some people in my industry who share their income reports every month to show the social proof that what they're doing is working. I've never been like that, but I can say that my community has watched me go from one apartment to the other. They've watched me take different vacations. They've watched me dress a little differently. They've watched, you know what I mean? Like they've seen my lifestyle level up since they met me as an insecure plus size girl, in 2008, right? So I think that I realized I went on a tour, a 50-city tour with Loft. I'm a model for them and a brand ambassador. And that was the first time that when I met my fans, they started asking me about starting a business as opposed to asking me about like clothes or wellness. Like instead of there were definitely lifestyle questions too, but like a new question started popping up. And I was like, okay, like I don't have to show my income reports, but like you've seen me move. I haven't, like everything's okay for now, right? So I think I try to let my life speak for that without trying, without being too blunt about it. So I try to show that it's possible. I think one of my more popular YouTube videos in the past year was when I moved into this apartment, because I was very transparent about the fact that like I wasn't sure I didn't see myself in a place like this by myself. I thought a man was going to level me up into this, right? So I'm like, oh, if I can do this by myself, I can't wait to see what I can do with a partner. But like until then, solo women can figure out, like, don't wait on your weight to live the life you want. Don't wait on a husband. Like, if you level yourself up, then someone in alignment with that will come and you'll level up some more. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And I think so much of this is around kind of confidence as well. And I'm interested, Kathy, because you're so kind of ingrained in this area, but why do you think women struggle with financial confidence? And we see a lot of research and there's a lot of marketing out there around trying to speak to women around this subject. But I think that there isn't, I think there's something more sort of substantial than that. And I kind of see these conversations and the conversations that you have and the way that CeCe approaches it, that is by women for women, as much more powerful way of empowering women than some of, say, the larger institutions that have tried to kind of appeal and market to women.
Well, it's interesting. It was a long time ago. I was on the board of an organization that the mission was empower women and eliminate racism. And I'm a very big, follow your mission. And I remember we were going to hire a new advisor for the money. And I couldn't do it because I was on the board, but they called me and said, we just want to let you know, and we're going to make sure that we find, some good advisors. And I said, what would be really nice is if you look for some female advisors. There's a lot of terrific female advisors out there. And they said, oh, yeah, sure, we're going to do that. And then they came back to me and they said, we narrowed it down to, 3 different advisors, and we're going to select so-and-so. And I said, oh, well, that's a male. And they said, yes, but he did tell us he has a female on his team. And I said, do you know what her title is? And they said, we'll find out. And it was a staff position, and there's nothing wrong with being in a staff position, but it goes against the whole concept of we're trying to empower women, and that's our mission. Why are we putting a man in a senior, sort of leadership role with money? And I think that sort of behavior just kind of continues that lack of progress, right? Because you have to actually not just talk about it, you have to do it. So I think that was something. So I resigned from the board, actually. And I told them why. I said, your values and your actions aren't aligning with your mission. And until we do that, I don't want to be part of representing something that isn't following that. And so I think we have to speak up and take action. There's also a lot of growing up, we have a lot of messages, right? Things are changing today, but there are certain messages about, who can handle, who is the head of the household and who's handling the money. And I think those messages play with us, they play into the way we look at things as we get older. And it gives us a lack of comfort and confidence in what we're doing, because none of us really learned any of this in school. Nobody ever taught it, which hopefully, there's some changes going on now. And we have to educate everybody about money from, and you can do it with simple ways from, elementary school to middle school to high school to adulthood. So I think there's that too. And then, what's funny, I've seen lots of different surveys about women and money. And the truth is, whether or not we have a significant other, women outlive their spouses or they get divorced from their spouses and have to be the ones to take care of it at some point. I've taught classes for women and investing for decades because I'm passionate about it. And I found that in the 90s, when I started teaching these classes, most of the women that were coming had just come through a crisis, or they're in the midst of a crisis situation. Their spouse just died. They were going through a divorce. They lost a job. There was something really significant happening in their lives. And I always say, most people are uncomfortable about money. They don't know where to start to learn about money. And when you're in a crisis mode, you can't think straight. So you're not going to be able to learn about a topic that you didn't want to learn about to begin with, or that you were uncomfortable about to begin with. So we can't wait till we're in a crisis situation. We have to learn it now, empower ourselves now, and make the decisions for ourselves that are lined up with our priorities when it comes to our values, our goals, and things like that. So, and the last thing I'll say is, the younger generation, we really thought we're doing a better job of, taking the lead or being like taking ownership of their worth. And what happens, we're finding, is once they settle down or find a significant other, they get busy, maybe start having children or the career or whatever it is, we tend to start paying attention to other things and we delegate that to somebody else. And sometimes when we're delegating it, we're not really delegating it, we're sort of relegating it over to to someone else and not paying attention. And it's so important. I mean, money is power, like in a good way. Think of power in a good way. It's giving you options and choices to live the life the way you want to live. And you should have an opinion and a decision about the outcome of that money and what that's going to do for your life. And that's why I think it's important to take hold of it now.
That's great advice. Go on, CeCe.
I'm just, everything you're like articulating, I feel like probably the inner dialogue when she's like, when Juliet's asking, like, you started a business, how did that feel with money? And like everything you're saying is how it felt. Like part of the reason I was always so happy to have a co-founder was because I was able to say, like, you deal with the money stuff, like I don't want to deal with it, like, and it's like, it's only now that I'm like, there's a difference between like I'm bad at money and like I don't know, like, and so now being like giving myself room, right? Like, what are my COVID chores? Like, I'm like purging, I'm like making sure my voter registration is all set up and I'm gonna get my money together. Like, I have all this time, right? So I think you saying don't do it in a crisis, it's almost like self-care. Like
it is such
we talk about it, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So thank you for articulating it like that. Everything you're saying is true.
Yeah. And I think it is. It's like, it is self-care because some of the most stressful times we have are when we're worried about our finances. Like, can we afford that trip? Can we afford that apartment? What's going to happen if my career changes? And you start to worry. And there's a way to create calmness around that. And when we can reduce our financial stress, it brings us wellness.
Let's go to the basics because, well, also one comment on what you're just saying, Kathy, because I totally agree. There's women outlive men. Some women inherit money, some women divorce, but also there's increasingly more women have opted out of a corporate world to start their own business. And like CeCe, actually, you're suddenly having to kind of manage your finances on your own, and then it's like, actually I need to understand what I need to do. And if you break down the basics, you talk about just like the 101 is a financial plan. And that's not just, and it doesn't matter if you have $5 or millions, but it's just share with us, like, what's the basics of the financial plan?
Sure, absolutely. And I agree completely. The hardest part is starting and knowing where to start. And I always think progress, not perfection, applies in all parts of our life, but in the money part too. So a financial plan is something that anybody can get completed for themselves, whether you have no money in the bank or 10 and 10 plus digits in the bank, lots of money in the bank. It's a financial plan is basically a roadmap, and it addresses all the different areas of your financial life. So if you're like, I don't know where to start, I don't know if I qualify to go talk to this advisor, I don't know who I should trust or talk to, a financial plan is basically starting with your cash flow, like what is your income? What are your expenses? I will say, like, the first rule is you should always have more coming in than you have going out. Like, that's my first rule. So if you have less coming in than going out, then it's something that you need to work on. And, that's one piece, but always money in, money out. That's your income statement. Your net worth statement is listing all of the things that you own. So if you own an apartment or you own a car, or you have a investment account, you can list all of that. And if you have any debt or liabilities, you have to list them under liabilities. So assets minus liabilities is your net worth. And then you can see, oh, this is how much I'm worth. If you want to know how long it will take to double that, oh, I'm worth be a nice number. I'm worth $1 million, say. Great. How do I get to 2 million? You know, if I get an 8% return, this is called the rule of 72. If I get an 8% return on my money every year, how long will it take me to double my money? Simple interest. It's like 11 years. So you're like, oh, that's too long. I need to do things different to help build it up. Maybe I can add more money to my net worth pile, you know, and there's ways and strategies to do that too. So the first piece of a financial plan is looking at your cash flow, some of the things we just talked about. The next piece would be looking at your investments, investment consulting. How much risk are you willing to take? Women traditionally do not take enough risk in investments. We're very like the unknown, the fear of the unknown, not being comfortable. Nobody's really explained the benefits of long-term investing. Maybe we're looking more short-sighted on the investment front. So I think having a conversation about what that risk looks like. Sometimes the bigger risk is putting your money in the bank and having it in cash, because inflation might grow and your money won't grow. And then if you think about like how much it costs to mail an envelope, you know, a decade ago versus today, it's more expensive. So the same product or service will cost you more in the future with inflation. And if your money is not keeping up with inflation or exceeding inflation, then that is a bigger risk than investing for the long term. That's what I'd say there.
CeCe, how have you educated yourself around finances and you know, because you're probably now connecting with investors and having conversations like that. How have you done that, and how does that feel?
It feels good. I will say the best part about doing it now is that I have a team of very smart people around me. So I like to let big conversations start there, and then I get to come in with my special sauce. What I think is fascinating, and I'd love to hear how you guys feel about this, is like, for me, I have memories going back to like right after college where I've gone in for a financial plan, and the kind of like they went through all my stuff and they did everything you said, and then all that they told me was like, yeah, like you're spending more than you make, you should make more money. And it was just like blank, and like that was it, right? That's right. Literally the reason I'm an entrepreneur, because I was like, to all of your points, the price of a stamp costs more. I'm only getting a 2% raise every year. It's based on not my performance, but like what I came, like I'm anchored to this entry salary. And like, if I do the math to live the life I want to live, I won't be, you know, a cute young thing by the time I get there if I go off of this, right? So it was right. Like, everyone keeps telling me you need to make more money. I have asked the powers that be at my corporate job for more money, and they have said no in whatever way, for whatever reason, right? So what am I going to do now? Okay, first I worked 2 jobs. That was exhausting, and I didn't look very, you know, fresh because I was very tired all the time. So what do you do now? That's how I became an entrepreneur, because of all these. So what for the girls, I guess I'm asking all this because
I love
that moment has happened to me over and over. People come to me and look at my businesses and they want to throw money at me. And then with my personal, because I don't know anything, it's like, well, girl, like, I don't know what to tell you, make more money. And I'm like, but I, like, clearly I do, like, you know what I mean? Like, you end up very stuck, and it almost feels like,
right.
You feel like like I have to come back when I'm rich, right? Like it gets weird.
No, I agree with you. Right. No, I agree with you totally. And I would say the thing about a financial plan, it shouldn't be a document. It should not be a one and done. A financial plan should be a process, and there should be like goals and strategies around each aspect of the financial plan. And I'll go through very quick because I took too long before, but it's the cash management, investments, there's the transfer of your wealth, estate planning, protecting it. There's insurance pieces that come into play. Okay. And then there's wealth enhancement, reducing, you know, taxes, things like that. And then finally, like charitable.
Sorry, did you say reducing taxes?
Reducing taxes. Yeah.
Okay, that sounded really good. I'm very interested.
Yeah. Tax mitigation. So that's all part of a financial plan, and there's different areas. So you don't want to go in and have a financial plan and like get everything done at once, because it's impossible to do. And then it's going to be sort of like, okay, like the way you had your financial plan, that doesn't make sense. That's not a strategy. That's not
Go
a
make
plan.
more money isn't a
That's a
financial plan.
document.
Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. So like for our clients, we like to meet with them 4 times a year. So we do a plan every year, every year there's a plan that we update, and every quarter we check in to see how aligned we are with meeting the plan. So
Okay.
that gives you a sense of comfort and purpose that, okay, we're making progress, or, oh, I need to tweak this over here, and we can continue on the way we are. And so I think you have to have, it's a dialogue and a conversation, and constantly moving it forward. So I do think that's really, really critical to see the difference between a document and progress with a plan, which is not a snapshot in time, and that's it. It's over periods of time.
Yeah, it is really helpful. And I just think the really key, I love the kind of, this is part of self-care. And also, Kathy, you're always saying, actually, it doesn't matter what you earn, anyone can have a financial plan. So because I do think there is a barrier around, like, do you need to get to a certain level or a certain salary bracket and then you get a financial advisor? And I just sort of wanted to break down some of the barriers around language and some of the things that I think hold women back from driving more wealth into the hands of women. One is like, how do I become an entrepreneur and a founder? And CeCe, I think, your articulation of why, I think, is probably what a lot of women feel. It's like, I'm at that point, and maybe the way I do this is to become an entrepreneur. The other is around investing. And it's interesting because there was a comment on here that actually there's research that suggests actually women with investment portfolios tend to outperform men because they judge risk better. And I remember having a conversation with Seema Hingorani, who set up Girls Who Invest. And I spoke to a male client this week, and he said he listened to that podcast and he set up an Ameritrade account for his son when he was in his teens, because his son was showing interest in the markets and stocks and shares. And he never even thought to ask his daughter he never even thought to set one up for his daughter. And he listened to that and he was like, gosh, I didn't even exist. I didn't even broach the conversation with her. So I was just, it goes right back from the beginning. And I do think there is some kind of barrier around investing and women. And like, at what point can we start investing? What's the basics? How do we do that? And then CeCe around like how to just 101 on setting up a business.
Yeah, so I would say, like, to start investing, I think one of the easiest ways to start investing is with retirement accounts. And I'll tell you, because retirement accounts are usually long-term, you're not going to take money out of them. You're going to have a long-term view, and that will help you know that it's a put it away sort of a concept. And interesting, whether it's through work or you're doing it on your own, you have to have earned income to have a retirement account. But if you have earned income, you can put money away. And I tell this to all women who are also not working. If you have a spouse who's working, or if you're divorced and you're receiving alimony, you're able to you've traditionally been able to put money away in an IRA for yourself as well. And it's called a spousal IRA. So you can put that money away every year and it will accumulate. Now, the younger you do it, the better. For example, if you were 25 years old and you put $5,000 away for 10 years, right? And then you never put any more money away. So 10 years, you put $50,000 away. And then your friend said, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm 35. I'm going to start that now. And they put $5,000 away until they're 65. It's 30 years. And say they both had like an average 8% annual return on their money. The one who started at 25 would have over $1 million. The one who started at 35 would have like $865,000, something along those lines. Because when you start early, between the time value of money and compound interest is your friend. It makes money on your money. So not just the principal that you invest in it, but the growth makes money as well. And that's where a lot of growth and net worth comes from investing. So if you can start as early as you can and just start putting money away, that is key. And again, retirement is key. A lot of women are interested in impact and conscious investing, socially responsible investing. And now we're seeing the returns, are pretty darn good as well. You don't have to give up returns to invest alongside your values. So that's where I would start. And you could start with as little as $1,000. You can do $25 a month auto into some investments. And I think just starting and forming the habit is tremendous.
CeCe, advice on setting up your own business?
Yeah. I could say how I start businesses. So I think that something I'm observing a lot right now is that community is a word that people really love. People love to say they have a community. They love to reach a community. They love to talk about community. It's like a buzzword right now. And I'm watching people launch products and call them communities. And the only reason I know that it's happening is because when they're talking, you can tell they don't know who they're talking to. Like they're just throwing words out about said product, right? So for me, I accidentally started a community and then I just listen to them and I create businesses that give them what they want. That to me is the path of least resistance. There is always a human at the other end of a transaction. The fact that I posted about this conversation and there are people here that are here, like that's a lot of decisions that they made. They chose to spend an hour of their day here talking about this. And I just mentioned it yesterday. That's a lot of decisions based on the fact that like they support me or they're part of my community. Living in New York, some guys can't even keep a dinner date. You know what I mean? Like, so the fact that people can like keep an appointment based on that connection to me is way more valuable than like a sale. And so for me, if they are gracious enough to do that for me and they send me qualitative data that tells me what they're looking for, what they need, what they don't have, like the least I can do in return is give it to them if it's within my talent wheelhouse, which God is good, it tends to be. So that's how I do businesses. And I think that applies across the board. I think COVID was a really good example of that. I think that a lot of businesses sent out an email that said like our response to COVID-19. And like maybe from my gym, I needed to hear that, but I don't know if I needed that from like my music subscription service, right? And so for me, like, yeah, COVID's happening. Could I give my community answers on if the CurvyCon was going to go on hiatus in March? No, I couldn't tell them the decisions. We were still doing that. Could I give them any concrete information? No, but I couldn't, in good faith, knowing that like it's a community of like actually like real people. I couldn't, like everyone's going off of the quantitative data, which is that 100% of the world is thinking about COVID-19. Therefore, they send our response to COVID-19. And I'm like, thinking about the qualitative data, which is like when there's a crisis, like how does one feel? So my email was like, do you need a hug? And like talked about everything I've got going on. I know you're wondering about this. I know you feel that. Like I acknowledged it too, but it's about something else, right? And how many emails did I get back from people like, girl, thank you so much. Like, and have I met these people? No, but like that relationship to me is like way more valuable than just being like, I know that like olive oil is the thing, right? Like it doesn't matter, right? So that's how I do business. And if I was an athletic company, I'd do it the same. If I was a nail polish company, I would do it the same. So that's how I wish businesses were run, because as a consumer, it feels good.
I'm interested in both your thoughts on like how we can make women feel more empowered financially, and what do you think it will take to improve women's confidence in their own financial situations? And CeCe, what did it take for you to feel more confident in your own financial situation?
TBD on me feeling confident. Like we're still working on that, so I don't have an answer there.
TBD, I thought you said CBD.
No, well, maybe that will help too, but to be determined. We'll see about my confidence.
Which is amazing because you just exude confidence. Like you just, it's like you seem to have so much confidence. So
I think that's the thing with women. Like sometimes the easy thing is like so obvious, right? Like, okay, CeCe, like how you get dressed in the morning and go about your day is the same way you should approach your money, right? But for me, like money is a very like, it's almost like a very like masculine thing. I don't know. Like if this whole hour was about like outfit style and flowers and bathrobes and taking a bubble bath, like confidence on 100, right? The fact that I, you know, also have to deal with like the other stuff, I think I get intimidated. And I think that's when my imposter syndrome starts to pop out, because I think, you know what it is? I think finances are like the one thing that like you can't see it, right? Like I could walk around in labels all day and be broke, right? Or I could look like a bum and be a billionaire. So I think I probably have a lot of secret shame around it. I probably have those moments when I have had moments like in my career where I've had a marquee moment and been like, if they only knew what my bank account looked like right now, like it doesn't look like what you see, right? And then for me, that's always like, okay, you got to work harder so you never feel like this again. If anybody's ever giving you flowers, you shouldn't be like, but what about the lights, right? Like that should never be a thing, right? So it's taken me, you know, from my 20s up to like figure that out. But I think all those shame gremlins still like hang out, like they're still here, right? So I think that what I know, and what I don't know, I get real like fidgety about it. So that's probably the difference.
But I also think a lot of what you just shared is how so many women feel. So that, you know, that we can be confident in one area, but in an area like that, it still can feel quite intimidating to people, and to women especially. And Kathleen, I wonder, like, what should we be doing differently at a macro level to kind of prevent that?
Yeah, and actually, I think that's exactly what, you know, we were talking about. It's women are really comfortable having the conversation with other women. We just are. We're much more comfortable that way. So, for example, I taught these classes for women. I started in like the 1996, teaching investing for women, and I got like 40 women showing up to my library or, you know, local class, and I was like, wow. And they loved it, and they just couldn't wait to hear more. And then like by like, I don't know, the early 2000s, I was like, okay, you know, women in investing is done. Like there's like other people doing it now. Like I don't need to do it anymore. There's people out there. And then I had women coming up to me saying, no. They're like trying to sell us stuff. They're not teaching us. They're not like helping us learn. They're trying to like sell us products. And I was like, okay. So I went back to teach again. And this time I'm in my local library, and there were men that wanted to come. And I said to the women, you know, would you be okay if the men come to our class? Even though it's women in investing, we can invite them in. That's okay. And they were like, we really love doing it with just women because we don't feel intimidated. We don't want, you know, we feel comfortable asking questions. We understand. And I'd say too, like one of the biggest things I hear from women is like, when you speak, Kathy, like I completely understand what you're saying. Like it's not going over my head. You're not talking in acronyms. And that is so important. So I think those sort of things happen. Well, if they, you know, help a lot. And I've spoken to a lot of women's groups, and all the women, they reach out to me, and it's like, that's what they're craving. They're craving like to have a conversation with people who are not going to judge them, not going to talk over their heads, not going to ignore them if they're with their spouse, you know, like all of that. It's just, it's feeling valued and included, and that there's no dumb question, and that your opinions are important and your perspectives are important. And to feel that way, I think makes all the difference in the world. And when you're sitting across the table or in a circle of in a room full of women who get that and can share, that's a great starting point. So I think like that conversation helps a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it goes back to your point, CeCe, about knowing who you're talking to. And there's unfortunately a lot you know, a lot of people in that industry that haven't thought about that. And actually there are different needs and different ways to connect and empathize and communicate with women than there are with men.
I would agree. And I wanted to say with what CeCe said earlier, I totally get the whole qualitative versus quantitative, and also just speaking in a way that people feel comfortable. Because when I ask somebody, like when I meet somebody for the first time, I do like a discovery meeting, and we ask a series of questions to understand what's important to them. And my very first question is, what does money mean to you? And usually the first question that somebody gets is, so how much money do you have? You know, like there's a big difference there. One's qualitative and one's quantitative. And I think women resonate with the qualitative piece a lot more. And we want to know that who we're sitting with and talking with understands us as a person and not as a number.
I want to get to some questions. Someone made the comment that they think CeCe needs to sit down with Kathleen, and I think that's already in the works. So we're good on that one.
Pretty please.
Absolutely.
We're doing that. There's a question from Tiffany. Can we unmute Tiffany? Tiffany, are you there? Hi, Tiffany.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, yeah. Hi.
Hello. Yes, my question is it better to use an independent financial advisor / consultant, or to use one that's affiliated or works for a brokerage firm or investment bank?
I don't think it necessarily matters where the person is. I think it's more about the reputation of that person and maybe the relationship. So I think a great way to find a good financial advisor is very similar to how you would find like a really good doctor or, you know, another professional. Ask some friends, get some advice. You know, I actually had new clients come to me this year. I was telling Juliet, she interviewed me on a podcast either last summer or the summer before, and we were talking about money. And these two women, a mother and daughter, found me through Juliet's podcast, and they're clients now, and I adore them. But it was like they felt comfortable listening. They said, you really spoke to us when you were having that conversation, like that you felt like you were speaking to us and you would understand us. So I think like that, getting some of those things is helpful. There's plenty of great advisors out there, and they could be independent or they could be with a large firm like I am.
CeCe, thank you for that question, Tiffany. It's a great question. CeCe, what's next for Curvy Con and the Curvy Girls Guide? Like, where are you in the stage of the business?
Yeah, so CurvyCon is on hiatus because of COVID right now. We'll kind of I think we all are just holding our breath for a variety of reasons. So we will see what 2021 holds. And then with the Curvy Girls Guide, we are just continuing to grow that community. Our upcoming workshop, we have a wait list right now at the curvygirlsguide.com. And our workshop on the 30th is how to take photos of yourself. And there'll be a fun surprise project coming up on my Instagram Live on the 19th. So weekdays on my Instagram Live, I do something called Lunch and Learns, where we just like chat for a little while we have a lunch. So if you're an Instagram person, come hang out. I get on at 12-ish, okay? So it's between 12 and 12:15, I get on live. So 12-ish weekdays Eastern time.
And we'll share the Instagram of CeCe. So if you're not following CeCe, follow her, and also of Kathy. So if you do want to follow up with financial planning and advice, you can reach out to Kathy as well.
And I talk back, so feel free to send a DM, leave a comment. Like I read everything, I respond. So don't feel weird about that.
Thank you. And I want to go to Elaine next. Elaine Papalias. Elaine, are you there? Hi, Elaine.
I have really enjoyed today's conversation, and I would love to hear from CeCe when she thinks back to the days when she was struggling maybe to find the confidence to pivot in her career. What did she wish that she knew then that she knows now? What would have you know, what advice would you give to yourself before you made this career change and before you became an entrepreneur?
Sure. That's a really good question, Elaine. I have a small mastermind of creative entrepreneurs that I mentor. And one of the things we talk about a lot is what makes you mad. Whatever is the thing that makes you mad, that's the thing you're supposed to pursue. So like for me, again, just back to the quantitative, qualitative thing, right? Most brands would probably be like, oh, plus size women don't go to the gym and know why. And they would say it's because they don't have activewear on a good day, or like they don't want to if they're just completely not paying attention. But I, as a curvy girl who goes to the gym, know that like when you go to the gym, people just say weird things. They like congratulate you and you're like, I'm here every day. You know, like trainers want to like do like a Biggest Loser fantasy with you where they're like, I'm going to change your life. And you're like, I did a 5K last weekend. Like, I don't, like, people make assumptions about a curvy girl in a gym, right? So it made me mad. And so I started like an online wellness community. I have like plus size workout videos, stuff like that, because I was like, there's this narrative that big girls don't work out and it's making me mad. And I made a business out of it. I think a lot of times entrepreneurs either get stuck in perfection paralysis and they're really mad. And then they watch other people come up with it. Like the Soul Cycle girl is mad because Flywheel's out or whatever. And like, she's been sitting on that idea because she's so mad. So I think I would tell my pre-entrepreneur self, pay more attention to what makes you mad. There's a business there. There's a reason you see that, your view, you're not the only one. Build your community and then just start to ask them. Like I asked my community, like, how do you guys feel about like working out? And they were like, I feel very alone. I feel very isolated. Like, what can we do? And they rallied around that, right? So I think I can easily talk myself out of my own good ideas. But if something's making me mad, I'm like, okay, I got it. If I'm going to all the lifestyle conferences and everybody's getting free jeans, but there's none in my size, maybe it's time for me to start the Curvy Con so that all of the jeans are in my size, right? Like that's the stuff I wish I had executed on the earlier stuff that made me mad.
You're so inspiring, CeCe. I do think like it's amazing, isn't it? Like there is definitely something we need to break down both in like the founder network around like the whole like language around VC and investing. And I just think I just think the intimidation aspect is there, and I feel like we'll be doing more of these conversations, and I think this is a great start to kind of really starting to break down the barriers and kind of just be open about like let's level set on where we all are.
I agree.
Yeah,
and I think too, like even my friends or the women that I meet in different communities who are also founders, I think in the same way that I'm intimidated about your world and like the moving and shaking of all of that, I find that sometimes the people who are locked into the VC world and are comfortable talking to investors, I say like post something on Instagram for your community and they look at me like I have 3 heads, right? So there's something that for me is very easy to do. There's something for you that is very easy to do. So I'm excited that we know each other. And if there's ever anything I can do to help you with your Instagram, I'm happy to do it.
Yes, there will be. We'll catch you on that. And Kathleen, there's a question on where do you go for like, is there any websites or things that you'd recommend? You mentioned your investment classes. I don't know whether you still do those, but where would you recommend people go for information?
I can provide you with a whole list of resources if you want, Juliet, that you can post up there. And share with your community, and CeCe, I'm happy to do the same for you. There's so many different ways to learn and and to just absorb. So absolutely, I am thrilled to have met CeCe. I think you are just pure joy and dynamo and great energy. I love it. So I look forward to continuing our conversation too. And Juliet, so happy to be here and be part of the Worth community. So thank you.
Thank you. And last question for you both. What are you most looking forward to and what are you most hopeful for right now? Kathy, you go first.
Well, so we all know Halloween is around the corner, right? my neighbor put up a big sign on her front lawn. It's the numbers 2020. And right next to that sign, there's those numbers, there's a big sign that says, that was the scariest thing I could think of putting up this year. So I am looking forward to 2021, hopefully a clean slate for all of us, and a lot of really great energy. I love that CeCe has a community that she is leading, and also the interest in understanding money and making money work even better for you and helping others to understand the importance of that. I think that's fantastic. You are a great leader and great energy. So thank you.
Thank you.
CeCe?
Okay, I'm looking forward to Christmas because I grew up in California, and last year on a whim, I told my family, I have 3 sisters and my parents have been married forever, a whole thing. So they came to New York for the first time for Christmas last year. And like, I had a tree in my apartment, it was a whole thing. And this year I'm very comfortable with the fact that I'm not getting on a plane and going home for Christmas. This is gonna be my first like solo Christmas in the city. I get to like start new traditions and like, what does a CeCe Christmas look like? It's not going to be my grandmother's Christmas, my mother's Christmas. Like, it's just me here. So I'm already looking at my Pinterest for decorations. So we'll see how it goes.
Love that. And I look forward to seeing those on Instagram, CeCe.
Yes. I'll give you a sneak peek.
How about you, Juliet? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Halloween because Jesse, my son, like he told me yesterday, he was like, Halloween's better than Christmas. He's only 3.5. He doesn't know. I was like,
baby.
okay, if you feel like that, that's fine. So I'm looking forward to Halloween too. I'm looking forward to the point that I can get back on a plane and visit my family in the UK as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, do you know what? I think this time has definitely made me enjoy the moment more and enjoy day to day, and just kind of be grateful for you know the good and the simple things, I think.
Great.
I want to just thank you both. It was such a brilliant discussion. We'll do more of this. Thank you so much, CeCe, and thanks for your openness and your positivity and your energy. And a special thank you to you, Kathy, for being our partner for this series. We've shared all of the links in the chat, and we will share the replay of this in our Women and Worth newsletter that comes out every 2 weeks. Most importantly, thanks to all of you that joined us today and for your great questions. We hope you enjoyed it. Please do share any feedback with us at community@worth.com. If you'd like to join more conversations like this and be part of the Women in Worth community, please do register at worth.com/women and worth. You can register your interest on using the subscribe button in the top left of the worth.com homepage. And join us again next week at Worth Live for the next normal series on Thursday, again at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be talking about how 2020 is changing the idea of workwear and formal wear with Jonathan Baker, Managing Director of Turnbull and Asser, David Hamilton, partner of Hamilton Shirts, and Kathleen Entwistle, private wealth advisor at Morgan Stanley. You can register for this at worth.com/events and for all of our other events. In the meantime, be kind to yourself and others, stay healthy, safe, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, CeCe.